Hi there and welcome to the fourth lesson of this chess series. If you haven't subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like. Now today we're going to be talking about the concepts of check and checkmate. If you're new to chess, a lot of times you must have heard players say the word check or checkmate. So what do these terms mean? So in chess, check means that the player's king is under direct attack from one or more of the opponent's pieces. Now here are the things to take note of when the king is on a check. So firstly, the game doesn't end immediately when the king is in a check. The player must make a move that gets the king out of that check, and this can happen in three ways, which is either by moving the king to a safe square, blocking the check with another piece, capturing the attacking piece. So these are the three ways you can defend a check. Now, a term I use for most of my students is CPR, and this is the abbreviation for capture, protect, or retreat. So whenever your king is on a check, if you can just remember the term CPR, then you know what to do in that scenario or that position. So when your king is under attack, you can now go back to the abbreviation, which is CPR, now C, which is capturing the attacking piece. So if it's not possible to capture the attacking piece, you can look at the other option, which is to protect. Now, if there's no any possible piece to protect your king, then you're left with the last option, which is to retreat. In some cases, you'll have more than two options. And that's typically how chess is. In most cases, there are different options. It's just for you to find the best move. But don't worry, you're going to get there very soon. So the major thing is for you to know what to do when you are under a check. So these are the possible ways to get out of a check. Now, if you have looked at three of these possibilities and you found out that it's not possible thing you can do, you don't have any piece that could protect, you don't have any piece that could capture the attacking piece from your opponent's side, or you don't have any square to run to. Now, this is what we call checkmate. So a checkmate is basically when your king is under attack and three of these possibilities aren't possible. Now, a checkmate is when your king is under attack and now he can't capture with any piece, because even if he captures, probably there's still another check, or he can't move to any square because the squares are all being under attack. Now, lastly, he can't protect with any piece. So he can't protect, he can't capture, and he can't run to any safe square. So this is what we call by checkmate. Some cases, or some people will say that this is when the king is trapped. So if the king is trapped and don't have any square to move, then you can call it a checkmate. And this ends the game. The key differences between the check and checkmate is that for check, the king has a possible square to move to. For checkmate, the king does not have any possible square to move to. And also when you're on check, the game continues. But when it's a checkmate, the game is considered over, and whoever delivers the checkmate ends up being the winner of the game. So this is the difference between the check and checkmate. So we're going to look at some positions whereby the king is under attack and the king doesn't have any possible squares to move. And also we're going to look at some positions where the king is under a check too. So once we have solved a few of these positions, then I'm going to set up some exercises towards the end of the video that I can use to check whether you fully understand what the concept of check and checkmate is. So watch till the end. So this is an example of a position whereby the black rook is attacking the white king. Now, the white king is under attack. So using the three approaches that you do when you're under a check, which is the CPR. So first, you always consider the capture. If there's a capture, then you should always consider it first. Not that it's the best move, but you should always consider the capture first, then protecting, then running. Alright, in this position, let's check whether there's any possibilities of white capturing. Okay, so the bishop can actually capture the rook on d6. If you remember, the bishop moves diagonally. Now, if you have not watched the video on how the piece moves, or you're still having a little bit difficulty, I have a video that you can watch on understanding the movement of chess pieces. As you can see, the white bishop can capture the rook. Now, let's move to the next one, which is P, protected. Now, is there any piece that can protect the king? The rook is attacking the D file. So there should be a way that we can place one of our pieces in front of the king to avoid the rook attacking the king. So one of our pieces will serve as a shield, and the move is knight to d4. So the knight can actually protect the king in this case, right? And the knight protects the king, and it's something that can be played here. So if the knight protects the king, it will be a check also for the black king. Now let's move to the last one, which is R, to either retreat or run away. Now, there are a lot of squares that the king can move to from where it is right now, but it can't move on the D file because the rook is attacking every square that is on the D file. So you can either move to the E file or move to the C file. Now, any of these squares is going to be possible for white and also good. So in this position, the best move actually is to just capture the rook, and then the game will become a complete draw from here. Now, here's another example whereby the king is under attack on D1. Now, if you try the CPR, which is firstly C to capture, there's no any possible way we could capture the rook that is on B1, as the knight is not attacking the rook, or the rook on F1 also isn't attacking the rook on B1 because the king is in its path. Now, the second option, which is P, to protect the king. Now, the only square you can actually protect the king or use a piece as a shield for the king is the square C1. And there isn't any piece that can actually get to C1 at the moment. So protecting also doesn't work. Now, the last option is to either run or retreat. Now, if you check, the king can't go to C2, D2 or E2 because the king is guarding those squares, and the king can't still move on the first rank because the rook is attacking all the squares on the first rank. So if the king decides to go to E1, the rook is still attacking the king. If the king decides to go to C1, the rook is still attacking the king. And here, my friends, like I said earlier on, when all these possibilities don't work, it is then called a checkmate. So in this position, we can say that white has gotten checkmated. So this is an example of a checkmate. Here's another position that almost looks similar to the previous, position, although this is a little bit different. Now, the king is on check, right? So if we check our C, is there any piece that can capture the rook that is on B1? The answer is no, because the queen isn't attacking the rook, and the bishop also isn't attacking the rook. Now the next question is there any piece that can protect the king, which is a P? Now, the queen can't actually protect the king because the only way you can protect the king is by either going to C1 or D1. Now, the bishop can actually protect the king by going to D1. And bishop to D1 in this position is actually the best move. But we're going to still consider the last option, which is R. Now, king can move to a number of squares, but in this position, its only legal move is king to F2. Right? So the king can only move to F2 because the square E2, D2 is being protected by the king, and it can't move on the first rank again because the rook is attacking the first rank, right? So the king has only one square, which is F2, and now king can go to F2. Although this will be a bad move from white because if king goes to F2, now the rook is attacking the queen, and if the rook takes the queen, then the game will become a draw. So, but this is for, we're going to talk about exchanges in the further lesson and a material balance. So this is what we're going to look at in the later future. Now, I'm going to set up some positions, and you're going to tell me whether these positions are actually checkmates or checks. And you're going to, if it's a check, you're going to try to tell me the right moves for each of the possibilities, which is C, P, or R. Right, so I'm going to be setting up two positions. If it's a checkmate, you can say the first position is a checkmate, and if it's a check, you can say the first position is a check, and the right moves for C, which is capture, is this. The right move for P, which is protect, is this, and the right move for R, which is either run or retreat, is this. Now this is the second position, so you do the same thing if it's a check or if it's a checkmate, and drop your answer in the comment below. So thanks for watching till the end, and don't forget to subscribe so that you will be alert for the next lesson on your journey in learning how to play the chess game.